Hey, what's up, everybody? In this video tutorial, we are going to take that side and that base piece that we created last time in the part one video tutorial, and we're going to put those together with something that we call joints. So when we're talking about joints, basically think of this as like Fusion 360 glue. In reality, we'd be putting fasteners in this and probably putting glue on it, but this is just a way to bring parts together. All right, in order to do that, we're going to have to identify 2 points where these parts are going to come together, and then we're going to explain a behavior. All right, so if I went to my data panel right now, you can see I have my Carnival game base and we have my Carnival game side. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put those together in what we call an assembly. So the first rule is that once we have a new design up, okay, and I have a new design up, it's shown as untitled, we're going to come out here and do a save, and I'm just going to give this my name. So my name is going to be Carnival Game Assembly, okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and hit save. All right, so once that has been saved, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, my data panel, and I'm going to start bringing those parts in. So remember, I create these individually. So if we're going to be assembling with parts that have already been created, okay, that is something called the bottom-up approach, okay? So we create our parts, we're going to drag those in and do something with them in the assembly. That's bottom-up. So check out what happens. When I come to my Carnival game side, I pick and I drag that across the line and I bring that in, it's going to be showing it right there out in this sort of assembly area. You're going to see a triad and you're going to also see some dials. Okay, I like where this is at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just say okay on this. Now, there's one thing that you're going to notice when you bring that in. You're going to see a little chain link here. That chain link is indicating to us that this part is linked from someplace out there on the data panel because the part already exists, and that's this guy right here. All right, so if it's a bottom-up approach, it's going to be linked, okay, like so. The other issue is that if you sort of think about this, we've just drugged this part into, space. If we pick, hold, and drag, we're going to be able to move it. All right, we don't want it to move, so I'm going to go ahead and hit undo. And what I want to do now is I want to ground this part. All right, so I'm going to find that part over here in the browser. If I right click, I can now come up here to the top and I can pick on ground. Okay, as soon as I ground it, you're going to see my icon has a little push pin in it, meaning that it's not going to be able to move if I try to grab a hold of it. And you can see me right here. We can see that side is not moving. All right, so I'm not just going to need one side, I'm going to need a second side. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my data panel again. I could drag this in, or what I could do is right click on it here and say copy. I can pick out here in the white space, right click and say paste. We're going to see that same triad. It's coming in a second time. I am going to go ahead and pick on this to move it because that's right on top of my last side that I put in there. I'm going to go ahead and say okay on this. All right, now, if you're guessing that this thing can move, yeah, you're right. It's not been fully constrained. I don't want it to be fully constrained because I have that base that I have to drop in here as well. So I'm going to come here to my data panel. I'm going to come to my Carnival game base. I'm going to drag and drop that in. Okay, when that comes in, if you want to get it away from that side, okay, you can use your axis arrows. You can sort of move it and shift it like that, or you can come right here to the dot in the middle and we can move that up, get it out of the way and say okay. So once again, we can see 3 chain links in here. Okay, that means it's referencing these parts that we've already created in the data panel. This is a bottom-up approach. Okay, so what we have to do is make sure that this top is going to come here and rest on top of these sides. So here's how this is going to go. You're going to see an icon out here that looks like a hinge. That hinge is a joint. Okay, so I'm going to pick on my joint. We're going to be seeing our dialog box for joint show up, and we're going to see that there's 2 different tabs. There's one for position and one for motion. The position is going to allow us to pinpoint the 2 exact points where we want these 2 to come together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use orbit. So I'm going to go ahead and hold shift. Okay, hold the scroll wheel, and I'm going to move this over. And now I'm coming in here to the bottom side of this base. Okay, when I get my cursor close to a face, you're going to be seeing this coin. All right, that coin is laying flat on that face. Okay, and that's really the orientation I want this point to be connecting with, is on that face. So what I'm going to do is that if I get close enough over here to the edge, you're going to see the orientation of that coin changes. All right, see if I can orbit this over. You can now see it's no longer flat. Now it's going to be going perpendicular to that edge. That's no good. All right, remember, I want this face to connect with the other face. So in order to fix this, what I'm going to do is hold Control. Okay, I'm holding down Control, and now when I move my cursor, it's only going to be locating, okay, those geometry points, okay, in that same orientation as the face that I started with, this guy. So I'm going to hold Control, and in this case, I'm going to come over here to this point. I'm going to pick it. Okay, now I'm going to come over and orbit on this. I'm going to get close into this face. Okay, so I'm right here in the middle of the face. I'm going to hold Control. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this top corner right here and pick it. Okay, so that comes in, it lays it right on top of it. Now, if this is going to lay it down and it's looking like it's in a funny orientation, don't forget you always have the flip. Okay, but since I want that laying flat on top of it, that's the orientation that I want. All right, so the second tab is talking about motion. Right now it's a rigid motion, or I'm sorry, a rigid type of constraint. If I hit the play button, it's going to show that those two are locked together. All right, they're not going to shake apart. But let's go ahead while we're here and let's pick on and take a look at the other types. So the second type is a revolute. That means that would be able to spin in that position. The third one is going to be a slider, so it's going to be able to slide from that position. Okay, the fourth one is a cylindrical, so it's going to be able to not just rotate, but also spin along that axis. Okay, and then the third one we're going to see is a pin slot. Okay, that's for a cylinder moving along a slot itself. Okay, then this one is just planar, so that means it's going to be able to rotate and move, but stay aligned to that face. And then we have this guy at the end called ball, which is going to go multiple different axes, okay, like so. But in my case here, I just want to be a rigid. Okay, so I can go ahead and say okay. Now, if I grab a hold of the base itself, it's not going to be able to move. The side's not going to be able to move. The side has been grounded. Okay, the base has now been constrained fully to that side. So now I can go ahead and orbit this over. Now I can start taking a look at this side and how we can connect it to the bottom of that base. So once again, I'm going to use joint. I'm going to come in here close to this face. It's lying flat on top of that face. I'm going to hold Control. I'm going to find this outside corner here, flip my base over, come to this face, hold down Control, go into this corner, and now those two are going to connect just like so. The motion that I'm wanting is going to be the rigid. I can hit the play button to show that those two are together, and I can go ahead and say OK, and now I can take this back into the home view. So if I grab the side, nothing moves. The base, nothing moves. The other side, nothing moves. They are fully constrained. Okay, so at this point, this is when I would probably go ahead and do a save on this. All right, and now we can see on the back side of this, we're going to need a back. So if you're opening up the data panel and you're realizing that there's no back, well, you're right. Okay, we haven't created a back yet. We're going to do back a little bit different. Okay, this time we're going to actually create the back right here within the assembly. So we're not going to be creating the back independently. All right, we are going to create this in the assembly because we can use existing geometry and we can sort of create this on the fly. Okay, and we can just create this back right in place. We can use something called an as-built joint. All right, and we can kind of go from there. All right, so here's how this is going to work. We're going to create a sketch. Okay, I'm on the back side of my game. I'm going to come right here to this face. Okay, when I do that, I can see that my origin is now right here. I'm going to come up, use rectangle, start my rectangle from this point. And now if I come over here, you're going to see there's no geometry that I can use. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit escape. Okay, I'm still in the sketch command. I'm going to come here to create, and I'm going to come down and find project include. And then over here, you can see this guy called project. So I'm going to pick on project, and I'm going to pick on this line and say okay. When I do that, now I can see this purple geometry starting to bleed through. Okay, now when I go to rectangle and I start from this corner, now as I come over here, now we can see it's starting to lock onto that edge. That's great. Don't take it all the way up to this endpoint. Instead, bring it down here just a little bit. You're going to see here in just a little bit why. Okay, so I've now created my sketch. I'm going to finish that sketch, and now I'm going to do an extrude. Okay, I'm going to pick on that face. Okay, but now we don't want to extrude this out, okay, because we want that to go within the actual game itself. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that arrow and I'm going to push it in. This is going to be the same size as my other parts, so that's going to be 3/4 of an inch. So in my case, I would have to type in negative 0.75 to send that into the box in that direction. All right. So I'm done doing that. Before I finish, this is the most critical part of this, is that this is not going to be a new body. Instead, we're going to click on this, and we're going to say this is going to be a new component. And now we're going to say OK. All right. So as soon as we say new component, we're going to see it's just going to give it a generic name like component 1. All right, so let's go ahead and let's give ourselves a name, okay, that's going to work on this. So in order to rename this, it's going to be a 2-pick process, but it's not a double pick. So it's like a slow double click. All right, so we're going to say that this is my Carnival game back. I'm going to hit enter, and now we can see it's renamed it. Okay, the other thing that we have to think about is right now, we never did put a joint on that. So if I can pick on this and pull it, you're going to see it's able to come off. So I'm going to undo that. All right, I want that to be constrained exactly where it's at. So up here underneath the symbol, we're going to be seeing something called as-built joint. We're going to pick on the as-built joint. We can see that our joint type is rigid. I'm going to pick on this piece, and then I can go ahead and just say, hey, I want to connect to that side. When I hit the play button, now we can see if those two are linked together or jointed together. We're going to go ahead and say OK. All right. And so now when I go to grab this thing, it's not going to come off. Now, if you're thinking about this, you're like, OK, we created that part. We put all this in place. We never told it what it's actually made out of. And you're right. So check this out. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to come over here to my Carnival game back, and I'm going to hit this little radio button here to the side of it, and you're going to see that everything goes transparent except for that back. Okay, so now I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to come up here and go to physical material. Okay, and now I can come down, I can look into my wood folder. Okay, and in my wood folder, you should be seeing your plywood choices, and finished plywood is one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that right on top of that part. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and close. So now this is made of finished plywood, but now we're going to add color to this because we've added color to everything else. We're going to right click on that again and come up here into my appearance. Okay, and now this is when I'd be going out and getting into my folders, okay, my paint folder and my metal flake folder, and now I could apply a color to it. So my other one was yellow, this one was blue. I think on this one we're going to make it that metallic flake green and say close. All right, and now this is going to be made of the right material. It's going to be the correct appearance. Okay, and now if I want to go back to the assembly, I'm going to come here to the top level and hit the radio button next to it. Okay, and there you go. Then my back is done. All right, so if you're looking at this and you're like, man, there seems to be like an awful lot of room here. All right, but still not enough room maybe to get a hand in. Well, we have to come in and we have to make sure that this is going to be, the right size, and we also have a window sort of cut out of it so people could go in and drag that beanbag out in case it goes into the hole. All right, so I want to make some modifications to this back. So just like last time, we're going to come here to our Carnival game back. We're going to hit the radio button to activate it. Okay, and now what I want to do is actually I want to go back into that sketch and I want to give it like a true height dimension because I never did specify that. So I'm going to right click here on my extrusion down in my timeline, and I'm going to pick on edit the profile sketch. Okay, so now I can come in and go and put a dimension on this. So I'm going to put this dimension, I'm going to select that line and then select this line and pull that across. And I can see right now for me that's showing like 8.397 or something. So I'm going to just say, hey, I want this to be 8.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and now I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. All right. If it's anything above that, there's a possibility that that board is going to be running into this other board, and we would not be able to actually manufacture that the way it's shown. If you ever want to see if there's an issue between two parts like interference, let me show you how that works. So I'm going to come here to inspect, and down here I'm going to see interference. Okay, interference is going to require you to pick on two parts. So I'm going to select on this part and then select on the top, and now I'm going to come down and I'm going to hit the compute button. As soon as we hit compute, it's going to tell us whether or not we have an interference between those two parts. I can see in my case there's no interference that's been detected, so I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and then cancel out of interference. Okay, but the thing is I want to go ahead and give myself, give myself like a sort of window here so I could reach a hand in to get that thing out. So I am going to come back to my Carnival game back. Okay, I'm going to hit the radio button, and now I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch, okay, right on the back face of this. I'm going to start my rectangle up here at the top edge and bring that over like so, and now I'm going to start giving myself some dimensions. So I'm going to say that this dimension from here to here is going to be, let's just call that 6 inches, and then this dimension from here to here is going to be 6 inches because I want it equal on both sides. And now I'm going to say that the dimension from here to here is going to be worth, I don't know, let's just call it 3 inches. And I'm now going to go ahead and finish the sketch. At this point, this is when we can extrude. And now I'm going to just extrude that pocket out. So we know that the thickness was 0.75. So I'm going to go ahead and send it in that direction, negative 0.75, and say OK. All right, and now that window is in there. So at this point in time, we can go ahead and activate our assembly by hitting on the radio button next to it. And now we can see that the back of that has plenty of room for a hand to go in and pull this out, but it's still structure on it in case somebody were to, step on this top. This thing isn't going to break the sides because it's all connected. Okay, it's going to be a lot more rigid design. All right, so there you go. That's the second part of your Carnival game assembly. All right, that's where we're taking the parts, putting them together. We're also taking a look at the bottom-up approach to it. And I don't know if you noticed this, by the way, but if we take a look over here, the Carnival game back is sitting right here in the browser. There is no link on it, which means it's not linked to another part of the data panel. So check this out. If I hit the waffle, all right, there's no Carnival game back. Why? Because it's embedded right there within our assembly design. So if I hit save, we're okay. Nothing shows up. Okay, that Carnival game back is built right within the assembly. So there you go. That's the second part of our Carnival game. So good luck.